John, I know you're very passionate, and we can talk about this another time because this is about youth sports, but about pitch count and how far pitchers can go. So let's talk about that from a youth standpoint because I know, I'm coaching my kids now, and sometimes I'm sitting here and I'm watching a kid throw 95 pitches at 11 years old, and I'm thinking, first of all, what is the coach doing? Second of all, what in the heck is the parent doing, letting their kids? So what's right for the most part for kids at that age? How many pitches should they throw?
Well, if you could imagine taking away the stress of throwing a ball, which is difficult in competition because you're going to have some stress. If you could take away the secondary pitches and all they threw was a fastball, well, then that number jumps up. But because we don't have those things working for us, I think a big leaguer today, if all he did was throw fastballs, could throw 150 of them. And I'm sure someone's head would fall off if I said that. But the stress of the results is what gets the body in a position for increased injury. In other words, if you're just throwing BP and you don't care about the results, you can do that a lot longer. So the pitch count in baseball and for youth sports is tied to how much stress and what is he doing out there, or what is she doing out there that creates more. So that number gets flexible. To make a carbon copy number of 15 pitches per inning sounds good, but it's not applicable. It's not always the same because let's say the pitcher is getting out of the bases loaded in the first inning. Well, that adds that take that number down then. Like take an inning down. If he gets out of two jams, then maybe take some more pitches down because he's creating or she's creating the moment that now creates more stress. If it's clean innings and there's not a lot of pitches, then the innings don't matter as much. So it really becomes the eyes of the mechanics. If they're good, no stress, not tired. Those things are a big component that most coaches don't really or are blessed with knowing that. So they go with a number. All right, 75 for 5 innings. That's what I'm going to do. But that 75 could be risky because of what I just said early on, getting in and out of all that trouble.
Yeah.
I think that is why I never liked a certain number. And certainly at the age we're dealing with, if kids threw just fastballs and learned how to repeat mechanics, their stress level and injury rate goes way down. But you throw in sliders and curveballs and bad mechanics, then you're doing a disservice because the longer they go, the more chance for their injury. Because they love to pitch doesn't mean pitching more is necessarily best for them at that moment.
John, moving up to high school, like post-puberty, in terms of going back to arm care, how like a lot of kids, and which is great. My son's a position player in high school, but they're all pitching as well. How does a position player who's never going to be a PO or is never going to be a full-time pitcher, how do they deal with like the year-round training of keeping their arm healthy when they're not really pitching because they're doing other things like playing third base or shortstop, but they're being called on to pitch? How do they manage arm care during the off season and during the season?
Well, everyone needs a break. So a break's good. A good month or two off of throwing anything is always pretty good. An overhand throw is not exactly the most natural for anybody. But there are ways to do that without the stress of an elbow. You could throw a football. It takes no pressure, unless you're trying to rip it 70 yards. I wouldn't suggest that. But throwing a football takes pressure off your shoulder, helps takes it off your elbow. Anything you have to grip and you have to throw with extension, that's going to create the tension that's not natural. So long toss in the off season. But here's the thing. Long toss can be misleading because people are trying to throw it as far as they can. That's not the definition of long toss. Long toss is throwing it at a higher arc so that you get it to the person without major stress. That is a training off season. I'm not a big fan of it in season because it changes the release point of a pitcher. But I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm just saying there are different ways to keep your arm from, it's not going to fall off. But when you pick it back up, there are ways to create that arm strength without doing it all year. Taking natural breaks is good. And allowing your arm to reset, you can do. I'm a big believer of high rep, low weight exercises that are done technically correct. The better you do your exercises versus just slinging weight to get strong doesn't add any value either. So to do the exercises correct without bulk weight also helps, keep the base. And any sport, if you're not foundation from your feet up, you're going to have problems the taller you go, like in a building. If the foundation isn't good, your legs aren't under you, then no matter what you do, you're going to run the risk of having the upper part of your body, pay for your foundation not being in shape or sturdy.
What would you say more injuries, John, are caused from overuse or mechanics?
I think mechanics, because the overuse kind of goes with the mechanics. It goes hand in hand. If I were to flick you on the arm just like this, and you give me 2 days of doing it, and it doesn't hurt, it never hurts because I'm not flicking you hard, but eventually it's going to leave a bruise. And that's the definition I would give bad mechanics. It's like a small little flick. Bad mechanics, you can get it done, but over time, you're going to put yourself in risk. So getting your body under control and learning your mechanics to me is way more important than the ability to just throw it as hard as you can. So shorter stints with bad mechanics still lead to a shorter career, and I think that's what they sacrifice something to have velocity. It's rare to have to match the velocity and location. So what baseball's done is they've said, give me velocity. We'll sacrifice location, because if you can get it close enough and throw it with max spin and max effort, then we'll deal with wherever that ball goes because of the style of hitting that exists today. So you have this, you're going to sacrifice something. And so if you can teach a young child, that's why I'm not big on young children pitching so fast, so early, meaning the rush to them to pitch early is kind of a disservice because it's not natural. Remember when it used to be coaches pitch? And then we realized there weren't enough coaches to pitch. And then it became, well, let's just get them out on the mound because if you go to a game, I tell parents this all the time, you're basically watching a pitcher and a catcher, and that's it. Because if you have an elite pitcher, they're not hitting. And if you have a bad pitcher, they're not hitting. And it's a walk fest. And it's like, you hear all these commands being shouted out by the parents. And in theory, they're trying to give them commands of encouragement where they're really the opposite. Get the ball down. Keep your eye on it. It's all negative shouting that they're thinking they're trying to, get their kids in the right direction. And I asked parents, I said, go to a game and promise me you'll just listen. Don't say anything. First of all, if your young girl or boy is listening to you, then they're in trouble because they're not going to be doing very well. And it's this command shouting kind of like encouragement. And I ask parents, just listen to one Little League game or one soccer game or one basketball game, and you'll be amazed at what gets shouted from the stands by the parents in what they think is an encouragement. And you'd be shocked when you listen to it.